seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, the Bhoycie bus revs up again. It is Saturday night, 9 o'clock. It's time to play some double Doon. Great to see so many with us already. And without further ado, we'll bring in our first guest that is out with the Boyce family, shall we say. We had Jonathan on last week. He was a bit of a guinea pig, wasn't he? But this week, I am delighted that the man who is joining us is none other than Stephen Tomlinson from the Endless Celts podcast. Yes, Stephen, how you doing, my man? You all right?
I'm all good. You can't help but have a wee dance at that intro, man. My shoulders were going, my head was going. Absolutely fantastic. Thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invite.
No worries at all, man. So, me and Stephen have been chatting for the last 15 minutes or so, and we've worked out there might be a wee bit of a delay. A wee bit of a delay. But we'll work around it. Don't worry. As you all know, the Bhoycie bus has, I think, shite Wi-Fi. The driver's not particularly good with tech. And he's kind of winging it on a Bhoycie webcam and microphone. That adds to the charm, doesn't it? It adds to the charm. Stephen, how the devil are you, mate? You good?
I'm fine, man. I'm thoroughly enjoying. Obviously, been on the Bhoycie bus. Been looking forward to the last few days. I was sending you off earlier. You were actually the first guest that we got on our show at the Endless Celts podcast, and it's funny how it's come around full circle. And this is definitely something I've been looking forward to since it's been announced.
Definitely. This is what it's all about. We will be doing the Double Doon quiz at the end of the night. Stephen has been frantically, guys, doing his homework in the build-up to this. I know it, mate. He showed me sheets and sheets of paper in Celtic research earlier. So I'm expecting a big score for you, big man.
Man, don't put that kind of pressure on me. I said the earlier before, like, the Endless Celts podcast, we do a quiz at the end, like the end of every podcast, and I never take part for the simple reason is I would get made a fool of, so I'm absolutely shite myself. Like.
No, mate, it's all good. It's all good. And obviously, as always, yes, we've got things Celtic we're going to be talking about tonight, Stephen. I think that's just what we do, innit? And then there's going to be a heck of a lot of involvement, as every show does, from the viewers, because I feel that is what the bus is all about. Every passenger that buys a ticket, well, they don't buy a ticket, get a ticket, you know what I mean? Once they're on, though, I want them to have the platform to speak as well and get our wee tiny pea brains stimulated as well. So we will be bringing up comments as the night goes on. Shall we get into it, mate? It's a
100%.
big
Let's go.
weekend, mate. It's a big weekend. Before we go into that side of it, tell us a wee bit about how we know each other. Obviously, you said I was on your podcast, but obviously, now's your chance, mate. Tell us about the Endless Celts.
Well, the Endless Celts podcast, we've been going since last February. We've gained followers in every kind of platform. We do a podcast every Tuesday and Friday. Find us on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, iTunes, everything like that. People like Russell Bhoycie have helped us along the way. As I said, he was our first guest to come on. I remember sending you the message on Twitter, and I sent this professional message to you, and you were like, "Is this fake?" And I was like, "No, it's just me. It's just me reaching out to you to see if you come on the show." But I mean, thankfully you've done that, and we've kind of went from strength to strength. We've done audio, now we're on video, and then in the future we'll be looking to do live. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, every platform you get a podcast. Really, Russell.
Yeah, I put it on your Twitter handle because that's what I knew straight off the bat. And obviously, if you just do a YouTube search, Endless Celts, you can't go wrong. They've got an extremely cool graphic thing that you have done at the beginning of the show. Talk us through the brains behind that, because I'm feeling a wee bit like my trailer leaves a lot to be desired.
Well, it's my co-host John Tomlinson, my cousin. He does fantastic work on the graphic side of things. He's an absolute genius from, as you said, from intros to graphic ways in terms of art. Have you seen the character cartoon pictures of us? It's all down to him, and it's fantastic. And we appreciate his work so much, because if it wasn't for him, we couldn't get on the kind of video side of things. So he's done a great job for us. Like,
you need that sometimes, mate. Sometimes you need, like, obviously you're meant to be the measured host, and you're up for a good crack and all that, which is good. But that's a skill in itself. And then sometimes you just need someone who can go, I'm actually quite smart with other stuff, you know. And that's what it's all about, though, when you've got a teammate. Absolutely what it's all about. In comes Monty, evening, Bhoycie, capital letters. He means business tonight, and I'm all for it. Shall we talk some Celtic, Stephen?
100%. Let's go.
Let's do it. We'll do a wee quick reflection on what I think the magnitude of Wednesday was, not just for the bus, by the way. I think we've got 3,500 views from that. So that was all right. But in terms of a 97th, if you're 97th minute winner, really, you look at the team that Ange actually played. For example, Liam Scales has been out of favour, right? And then suddenly he was trusted in that match, and you can't help but feel Ange had one eye in the final when you look at some of his selections. The other one that comes to mind is Tom Rogic, obviously not starting. Now, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind Tom Rogic will be the first name, or one of the first names, if you like, on the team sheet for the cup final. So, despite Ange rotating it, we didn't just get away with it, by the way, because we'll get to penalties and all that in a minute. But those 3 points could be huge in the title race, couldn't they?
Well, I said in our show that that Ralston goal could have saved our season. It really could have, because we can't afford, from my point of view, to go any more points behind. I know we're 7 points behind now, the game in hand. Obviously, the cup finals, the big thing we're going to talk about, but the game in Dingwall was vital. It was a game. It wasn't pretty, Russell. It wasn't pretty on the eye, but what you seen was a relentless attitude from Celtic that we didn't see last season. Postecoglou, for me, strummed this style into every player, and young old Moffat kind of epitomised that when he came on. He was playing the way Postecoglou wants to play, that high press and intensity. If we had a proper strike on the pitch, we could have won the game more comfortably. And you bring up Liam Scales over here in Ireland. He's well thought of. I'm a bit myself ignorant towards the kind of the League of Ireland down south, because I'm up in the north. But everyone I've spoken to regarding him say he's a fantastic young player, one of the best prospects coming out of Ireland. So there's plenty of hope for Liam Scales over here, especially. But what I loved the most was that never say die attitude, and it's something we missed desperately. And the scenes at the end, I know we'll probably touch upon that, Russell, but for me, it was pure passion. It was joy. It was frantic. It was what we missed during that whole that campaign last season. And for me, Postecoglou's come in and implemented a far better style of play. Just trying to kill teams. I know sometimes we don't in a scoreline do it, but I mean, mentally and physically, you can see us draining teams. And we took Ross County right to the 96th. As you said, 97 minute, people a bit iffy on that. Ralston, Tom Rossie's come on the pitch, made a difference. Love the assist, and Ralston with a header. What more can you ask for?
No, I couldn't agree more with that. How's my sound now? Is that much better?
You're in the room, now? Russell. I'm in the room.
Aye, because Monty's saying that my sound was poor. For some reason, what's happening, Monty, is StreamYard keeps wanting to use my webcam as my microphone. and he keeps switching it back to it. I've got absolutely no idea why. So I've just put it back to my USB mic. So hopefully, you know, with the best will in the world, that'll be me sounding a wee bit better, much better, Chief. There we go. So that was the problem the other night as well. Last night, I think basically the microphone, I was using the freaking webcam mic, which I don't really think you're meant to be doing that. I sounded like I'd chain smoked the horror fags before I came on. So thank you for the head.
You're like muffled.
Honestly, mate. Honestly, it was terrible. So all I want for Christmas, Santa, is a new microphone, mate, and I'm sure Monty will sort that for me if Santa doesn't. Right. I felt the same way as you. I also think, with regards to winning games like that, I think that's the type of game that show a difference in Celtic. We won by the odd goal quite a bit recently. I just think those 3 points there. See the celebration with the fans coming on the pitch now. Folk can condone it, folk can criticise it, or folk can ridicule it, as we've seen a bit of. And you know, let's be completely honest here. The Partick Thistle comparison is absolutely, it's just irrelevant. What were they celebrating? Finishing third or something? Like, it was third. I was like, what the fuck? We're celebrating because I think Celtic fans, for me, if I'm honest, have been very, very trying to create that momentum shift that happened when Rodgers came in. It's almost like it's always been a wee bit over the top the amount of praise Andrew's got at times. He's alluded to it, right? He's said, I've not really done much to warrant this, but the good thing is it's a healthy thing for Celtic. And I think the fans going on the pitch, and it almost created like this was a bigger moment than maybe the players realised and stuff. And I think all these wee ingredients are adding to a side that's getting a mentality. There's a mentality shift in them for the start of the season. I don't think that's up for debate. And that goal may well be something we look back on with a very satisfied grin come the season. I'm not predicting it either way, but I do feel that was a big 3 points, man. Certainly give us a boost, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the way you say about mentality, when players see the fans celebrating like that, if you look at like the players who are starting first games, like Liam Scales, Cameron Carter-Vickers coming in from Spurs, he won't have seen that kind of scenes, the joy and adulation, and they'll probably go back in the dressing room and talk about that, because we've seen Juranovic talk about the silent protests, how it affected the team, kind of. Now, the kind of stark contrast at Dingwall, from the first minute to the final whistle, the fans were bang on it. They were right behind the team, as they always should be. They were showing support. The players were feeding off it. And at the end, I mean, it was just it was probably 30 or 40 fans, Russell. It wasn't a big, massive kerfuffle, get on the pitch. You know what I mean? Certain pundits make it out there being the apocalypse, that there needs to be a behaviour audit, some pundits said, which is absolutely scandalous, saying things like that when he kind of let the Rangers fans run wild in George Square and make excuses for that. So you have to have a consistent basis when you're kind of criticising or condemning teams. For me, it was just joy. It was passion. And Anthony, who's a regular on our podcast, said that's a selling point for Scottish. There he is commenting right now. That's a selling point for Scottish football. That wasn't planned, Russell, I promise you. That's a selling point for Scottish football, and he doesn't want to see that took away from our game. And I totally agree with him on that point.
I think that's fair. And I think as well, the Celtic players had complete grip on the situation. There's one wee scene where I can't remember the exact player, but they're basically just saying, right, mate, get off me, though. Yeah. You know, it's not like the Celtic team's encouraging any of this and that. And sometimes emotions are going to spill over. And it's something I just think the players, like you say, it's a brilliant point you make. What are they talking about in the dressing room? You know, you've came up for Spurs, bunch of bedwetters in that team. You know what I mean? And when you're coming up for there and experiencing this, you're going, oof, you know, grab your bollocks, son, because this is going to be a bumpy ride along the way. And he probably hasn't seen it matter so much to people in his life if he's won a game or not. I mean, where was he at? You know, Bournemouth last year. Do you know what I mean?
Bournemouth.
It's come see, come sa. You know, it's a packet of plain crisps there, mate. You know, it doesn't matter if, we drew, we'll all sleep soundly, you know. It's not like that here. And when you see it the other side, it's not because Celtic fans want to be critical or anything like that. It's because they're gutted when they get bad results and they're over the moon when they get late winners or brilliant wins. And that, undoubtedly, that has got to feed off into the players. And that leads us nicely, obviously, to the league table, looking at it right now, because not that I wish I had a graphic of the league table, but looking at it as supporters, we are at the end of the day 7 points behind right now, Stephen. After we'll get to, penalty bingo and all that. But with regards to the actual league table, is it something that you've got a concern about being 7 points behind, albeit because we're not playing this weekend? But whether we like it or not, that still means there's points on the board that we've still to achieve. Do you know what I mean? And do you think that puts heavy pressure on Celtic? And have we got enough players to be able to handle the heat?
Well, first of all, I mean, we have to give great praise to the team. We're in a cup final and they aren't. We're up for silverware and they aren't. 100%. Something they kind of lack, do you know what I mean? But I do get what you mean. I mean, last season, it was a big thing mentality-wise when we started fall behind in games in terms of games in hand. They were getting further and further ahead, albeit it was mainly due to kind of COVID restrictions and stuff like that with the team. But they got further points ahead of us. We struggled to grasp it. Then the games got further and further. I think we were at one point, Russell, 3 or 4 games in hand against them, which mentality-wise, you're looking at that going, we have to win all 4 games to keep the title tallies going, which would be tough. Yep. But for me, under Postecoglou, I think he'll be like he is with the media type thing. He'll be calm, he'll be collective, he'll be assertive with the players, and they'll know what they need to do. We can already see a different change in mentality altogether of how they played last season. Cal McGregor, he loves how he's playing at the minute. He's already made the contrast when he said last season, around about this point, when they didn't know what they were doing on the pitch. Look at the difference now. I think looking forward now, I'm far more optimistic. I mentioned it on our last show we've done, to the guys, do you think it'll be a big issue? And they were all in agreement saying not really. But again, if this is potentially the last game before another circuit breaker, and just for example, you're kind of waiting to win that game in hand, that could play in the minds of the players. But from now, looking at it now, into this cup final, after the Dingwall win, if we win the cup final, then that's 2 massive momentum changers for me. And the confidence gained from both of them occasions, I think, should see Celtic through this. That's kind of the run of fixtures up until after Christmas.
I think you're absolutely right. And we'll talk about Ange as well, because undoubtedly his media persona isn't as far removed, I don't think, from what his actual demeanour is. I think, don't get me wrong, he's very much poised with the media. That's how I would describe him. He's already poised. He's waiting for their simpleton rookie errors, and he's seen it all before. He's seen it from people I think he's maybe knows are doing it from an agenda persuasion, or aren't in the same realms of football intelligence as him, and therefore he kind of is like, he's already on his toes when he's in his media conferences. Yeah. The one slip up, he schools them, but he always strikes you as very measured and very calm, even when he's maybe having a pop. It's done in such a way that you can't help but feel Ange is the least, or the most, I should say, nonplussed person about Celtic's injury list right now. About Celtic being 7 points behind, thanks to Rangers winning 5 games now by a single goal. 5 games without involving a penalty. He's the guy who's least fazed by that. He's the guy who I think you've actually stole his mindset a wee bit there when you said, well, we're in the final, mate. They're not. That's success. Yeah. He'll be looking at it very much through that prism, I think. That was a good point to make. Penalty bingo is how the banner opens up with. I don't want to go on and on and on about this. Do you feel that the number of penalties the opposition are getting are outrageous? Are we being paranoid? Are the standards just that poor that even though the inconsistencies through our lens seem to benefit Rangers predominantly than Celtic, is that a naive way of looking at it? Is the bigger picture that the standards are so crap? Because there's 2 ways of looking at what happened today, and I'll let you come in a wee second, Stephen, right? Alan Muir has 2, to me, blatant handballs. He gives one, he doesn't give the other. Now, I get that can be argued that, because he's shite. Right? He's just the standards hopeless. He's not a good referee. And that's why he gets one decision right and he gets one wrong. Obviously, you flip it, you put the Celtic tinted glasses on the green tinted glasses, and you cannot help but go, oh, wait the fucking hell. That was blatant what happened. Like, as blatant as Ross Kent. And funnily enough, at Ross County. We were at 1-1 at that situation, title on the line. And Rangers were at 0-0, title on the line. And he's at, so I always want to do in this show, and I've said this before, I'm not going to try and go down, like molehills of digging too deep into conspiracies, but I'm all for people's perspective on it. And I'm trying to give you the two sides to the argument. Both I think are valid. And now over to you to decide which one's right.
Well, I mean, added to the fact, I have to admit, I haven't seen the penalty kick that was given today, so I can't really comment on that. But so with blatant penalty, I've seen obviously people come out, hardcore Celtic fans, saying what the hell was that, and then you get the other person saying it was a penalty, blah blah blah. But if you look at the certain situations, there was a situation I think at Tynecastle where Rangers playing Hearts, Goldson hands the ball in the box, blatantly kind of saved the ball from across. Nothing was given. The penalty kick shout that Celtic had at Dingwall was a blatant penalty when we were attacking, when we were trying to build the play and get a goal. It was a shot in your man's like this kind of thing. It's scandalous. I think it can be inconsistency, but again, when the most of the decisions benefit one side, you're looking at it going, what is going on here? It can't be a coincidence 5 games on the spin where penalties involved for the team that's going for the title and we're trying to catch them. Sometimes you have to look at it and go, when would a Celtic board try and call this out? Because Anne said a perfectly good comment in a press conference recently about they won't speak about refs, they'll speak about winning games, which is exactly true. We need to win our games. We can't really focus on what's going on in other matches to see us through this kind of schedule at the moment. But we spoke about it on our show, Russell. I'm sure you've heard us. Some of us get a bit angry about it. I personally think the referee standard in Scotland's shambolic. And John, my co-host, perfectly said that they're amateurs refereeing professional footballers and they don't really understand the game as well, which doesn't really help. I just think there needs to be a big, massive change. Either make them professional, introduce VAR. I know some people aren't for that. Me, personally, I'm 50-50. Will it even help, Russell? I don't know that either. It's shambolic, the standard this season, and the referees, week in, week out, are digging the hole even deeper for themselves, in my opinion.
No, I think that's totally fair. And I think that's the thing. I always try and look at it and go, well, why would it be as biased as it is? And John Duncan comes in saying, remember, we missed the last penalty against Livy.
Yeah,
people could be up in arms about that. And I like that balance, because what you're going to find is you get other ones. And I think this comment from James is probably the closest to what I'm at. Because the thing is, a lot of Rangers, if we're being completely honest, the majority, I'm not saying a crazy majority, but the majority of the penalties they've won this season, deep down, have been penalties. But it's unbelievable to think how Hawkeye the refs are when these occurrences happen. I think that's how you feel. You go, but we could have had this, we could have had that. And it seems to be like every single decision that goes in favour of Rangers, whether it's fairly or not, they don't miss it. They don't miss them. And I genuinely, for a laugh today, put on Twitter, pick your number, pick your penalty bingo number with like a tombola thing.
I'd seen that.
8 minutes. 8 minutes and they'd scored again from a penalty. And I thought, that is quite wild. More comments coming in. And I mean, Adams feels we've been cheated by the XFA for years. I still think there's a side to it where we could feel like that. I mean, it doesn't help when you've got, in the past, Stu Dallas having, sending emails and effigies of, we all know what it was about. That's the head of referees. That's a guy who before we felt on the wrong side of decisions of. Well,
if you look at it, if you look at it as well, that you have Crawford Allen coming out crying wolf when Kyogo scored that goal that many believe was offside. He didn't. He hasn't come out any other time for any other decision. So you can understand why fans are fighting along them lines. Me myself personally, when I'm angry, I would think all that kind of thing. But when it kind of zoned down and think about it, you're going, it has to be inconsistency, because surely cheating or being cheated out of trophies or games, it'll be called out. And I mean, we've seen it famously with Juventus and Serie A. They were kind of done for the whole referee kind of match fixing games, and they got put out. No one's saying anyone's match fixing, but just for me at the moment, Russell, I think the referees does need a kind of revamp. I don't know what that revamp will look like, but it needs sorted out pretty quickly.
Interestingly on that, I mean, I just am not sure what the way forward is. We've discussed it on the bus plenty of times. People have different views on this. Some want to go foreign refs. Some want to go full time. So, but I think this is where I'm at on it. I'm with Michael. Now, if they're getting paid £900 to £1,000 a game, I mean, I get his point about the flabby bastards, but they're not up to par for that money, right?
Yeah,
they're nowhere near up to par for that sort of money. You remember, they've then got a full-time job on top.
Yeah,
A full-time job. How are you going to incentivize it, Stephen? How are you going to convince them to go, come full-time? You're going to need to offer them then like $3,000 to $4,000 a week. Otherwise, they're going to go, every referee in Scotland's going to go, kibosh that. I'm a heck doing that. I get, let's say they're on, one of them's a teacher, for example, he maybe makes 30,000 a year, something close to that. And then he does, I don't know, 40 games a season, 70 grand a year he's on, mate.
But then, can you not look at that? Can you not look at it from a different angle? As you always say, flip it. So if you look at it in terms of the SFA, right? Is that not lack of investment? I mean, Neil Doncaster has sold out the Scottish football side of things for years. The Sky deal is scandalous. The money has coming in, record deals for 25 million quid, an absolute joke. So there's two aspects to it. Do we need more investment into the system in Scottish football? I personally think so, yes, because we need our teams to flourish in Europe, domestically as well. We need to have a strong league. And the likes of Neil Doncaster and people before him have just took the first kind of offer thrown their way for TV deals or income streams or sponsorships. And it's an absolute joke. There needs to be something looked at in that aspect. The referees, for me, you're 100% right. Michael made a great comment. £900 to £1,000 a match. I mean, I would do that no problem. And I am a flabby bastard, so get me in there. But I mean, I do think there needs to be a major overhaul, because the time they went on strike and then other referees came in for a while, it was actually decent. It was better than what we're seeing now. Do you remember that a few years back they had a strike and stuff over pay? So is it a case of bringing in outside referees, kind of branching it out down to England for lower league referees to come up and do games? We all don't know. It's all obviously different opinions, but again, to harp back to it, Russell, it's especially this season, the fans back in the stadiums, it's even more noticeable. It's shambolic, the standard and consistency of Scottish referees.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although obviously there is a consistency, and that is, as I say, 5 games, 5 wins by a single goal, 5 pens that I can think of off the top of my head. But again, I just feel that a lot of it is the standards are shite, right? They can't help that. But they obviously feel, here's how I think of it, they feel right under pressure when they referee Rangers, right? I'm not saying it's all because they're loving doing it. I think that narrative is maybe one that I would park that and say more, Rangers put that much heat and fall out with everyone that much, and basically will hold you out there and will make you look the biggest dick in the world if you give a decision wrong, that they are far more forthcoming in doing it. And you know what? There's 2 sides to that as well. And one of them is Rangers act like the biggest club in Scotland. And they're not. No, but they act at times. See, when they do that, they will call everyone to account that they need to. I'm not saying I approve of it all, but they get folk in their pockets easy enough because they will ram the heat up. They don't even talk to the national broadcaster. And that was over nothing. Yeah. And yet we sit with Sky Sports on every single week, with Chris Boyd sitting there slapping Stan Petrov like an absolute bampot, getting taken to school by Sean Maloney on numerous occasions, and literally bumping his gums that Kyogo's a diver and that the offside goal was, there's no debate. No debate. I mean, where's Celtic and all that sort of thing as well? I know I'm going a wee bit off tangent talk about the media side of it, but it's another example of Rangers are a dangerous club to piss off. That's how they look at it. Mm-hmm. Celtic, for me, are a soft touch at times, and that should change.
Well, I mean, the favourite thing coming out of the boardroom of Celtic is silence, isn't it, Russell? We hear literally nothing. Do you know what I mean? So it's. I mean, Adam makes a perfectly good point.
Yeah,
and that's a Tony Mowbray. That's a Tony Mowbray statement. When we were losing all them games, take it on the chin and move on. That's what they're like in the boardroom. A Tony Mowbray, isn't it? But it's you want our club, the boardroom, to back the club full tilt, defend the club, praise the club, praise the fans. Do you know what I mean? Come out and tell the fans information, but they don't do it. And when you've got the likes of Sky Sports media partners like Chris Boyd, he shouldn't be anywhere near a Celtic game. in my opinion,
Yeah.
because he shows too much like literal biasm. It's crazy. I mean, Ali McCoy, Chris Sutton, they're class together. They bounce off each other, but no one bounces off Chris Boyd. Maybe physically they bounce off him, but that's about it. I personally think that Celtic need to be far more forthcoming and far more kind of assertive with the media at some points, because there's some things in the national press, you see headlines going out, you contrast it against other things happened in the past, and it's two totally different stories for the same event. And it's absolutely scandalous that they can get away with that. And you see Rangers, they charge certain media outlets £25,000 to get in for press conferences. Madness. Like, I know people do take the piss out of that, but it's complete craziness. And you're right to allude to the fact that as much as we may not agree with their kind of angle and things, they do defend the club. And it's something for me that Celtic, the boardroom level, haven't done for years, Russell.
Yeah, I agree with that. And McGinley makes a good point, but he actually kind of, in my opinion, kind of is backing up us as well, because if he remembers the strike, the 2010-11 season, i.e. 11 seasons ago, was us rightfully calling out Dougie McDonald over a penalty incident on Gary Hooper where he was caught lying. It took the guy to be caught lying for us to call it a ref. And the best example that P. McGinley can bring to the table, not in a bad way, because he's completely accurate, but what really strikes me when I read that is it was 11 seasons ago.
11 seasons.
I'm obsessed with all things Celtic. I was on, before it used to be the blogs and all the comments, in the mid-2010s. That's what I used to read. And then it's turned into podcasts and all that. And you watch all that stuff. And like groups on Facebook and stuff that you'd be a part of, like forums and shit. And it's brilliant. Are you telling me in the last 11 years, there's not been a million incidents where we felt there's been a right to say something? That's the difference. And I think, whilst it was great that we did that, P. McGinley, I'm totally on your side with that. It has to be called out more often. And they dare not
Russell,
do it with the other side.
It's obviously, I mean, we are talking about referees, and it's okay for referees to make mistakes. Do you know what I mean? It's fine. It happens in every kind of job, every professional walk of life. You make a mistake, but if you make that same mistake constantly in the job, you'll get punished. What's the punishment for referees? It seems to be nothing. A pat in the back.
That's
on you
true.
go again, son. There's a grand for you. Continue doing the same shite week in, week out. There needs to be action took against referees who have poor games, because you see professional footballers, look at anyone in the professional circuit, if they have 5 or 6 bad games in a row, they're dropped. They're dropped from the squad. But Scottish referees are always up in the SPFL doing the same shite. And even you can even go back to that incident with Ojo from Aberdeen, when he would try to stop himself from the supporters at Tannadice. He gets pushed and he gets booked. It's craziness. And it's not just us calling out what's happening in Celtic. It's every club's experienced it in some way or another. It just needs rectified and quite quick.
Totally, mate. I totally agree with you. And again, whilst the standard is so shocking that the level and number of mistakes that are happening involved in our matches are happening, even when the decision, and we have both agreed, not that you've seen it, but you're taking my word on it. If I'm saying it was a Stonewall penalty in Rangers' favour today, then you can trust me that it was, right? It fucking was, right? It's the last thing I want to be saying. The reason it then still gets scrutinised is because we go 4 days back and we look at something so patently obvious and from a Celtic persuasion that we needed just as much as they did today, and the same referee doesn't give it. The same guy. Like, that's where the beef comes. I'm not going to say Rangers didn't deserve the penalty today. I don't know about the performance-wise they deserved the penalty, but that incident was a penalty, whether we like it or not. Celtics was a penalty Wednesday. Same ref, exact same crime, and not given, and just as obvious. So we'll move on from it. I think we've done enough ranting on that, but it is a frustration. And we'll get to the positive side of the League Cup final and the optimism. Looking forward to that first, but I think we need to talk about this as well. And it's not my favourite topic in the world. The whole thing is doing my nutting now, not because I take anything away from anyone affected by it, just because my wife revolves a lot around being out and about. It's just who I am. I'm a socialite. I like going to football. I like going to gigs. I like going to the pub. That's the honest truth. And I'm not saying folk could go, it's easy to give that up. But I'm like, well, you tell that to a Bhoycie sitting 4 months in a row, just looking at his own 4 walls. And I've actually climbed one of them. Scratch marks on them. Like, It's not as easy as you think. So, you know, that's where it annoys me. But I understand if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. But we're here to look at it through a Celtic prism as always. And every 3 o'clock game today, Stephen, was postponed. Every single one of them said PP when you looked at the scores on Sky Sports. That was quite a harrowing sign. I thought, oh shit. And then my opinion is it's only going to be a matter of time till there's a stop to the footy and possibly even restrictions on numbers that can attend. Here's the point though. Whilst these things can all be debated, we'll maybe not be the best people to debate the reasons behind it all. Let's look at it from a Celtic perspective. What's the deal with you? I'm not going to ever again, for balance, say Celtic didn't win the league because of COVID. Did it play a huge factor in it? I think it actually did. I think it did. Will Celtic under Ange deal with this a lot better? And if so, why?
For me, we can deal with it a lot better if it's all rounds of fixtures are called off, Russell. So not just selective fixtures going ahead in terms of COVID outbreaks. If this is a circuit breaker for 3 or 4 weeks and every round of fixtures called off, I think we can cope. But if it's the same situation as last year, where if you had like 2 COVID outbreaks in your camp, you had to order 64 buses, do you know what I mean? 24 cars to take your players to a match, then that's where for me it can get a bit sketchy, because if you have certain games going ahead, or one's postponed, there's a chance for them to get further ahead. And obviously that can go around vice versa. So mentality on the players, it has to be a sore one, do you know what I mean, Russell? Because they're used to the fans. And if it comes back again after, just for example, another circuit breaker and there's half a reduction crowd, how's that going to affect the players after bedding in with 60,000 people behind them every 2 weeks? So there's different aspects. But if it's a circuit breaker including all fixtures in terms of being called off, I think Celtic can cope fine. That's all well and good. But the only concern, Russell, would be, as I said, if it's selective fixtures in terms of COVID outbreaks in a camp. Now, we've seen it within the SPFL. Obviously, Dundee United had to start like a 16-year-old academy player and all today. So there is ways around it. But if games get called off because one player has COVID, that's an issue for me. That shouldn't happen.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair comment. My concern is a break right now wouldn't do us any good. I
agree.
I think we're in form. Ange might look at it differently. Ange might go 2 weeks. Kyogo, Jota. He might even think Julian might be fit in 2 weeks' time, but maybe 2 years. But I mean, I think Ange is looking at it going, you know, actually, this circuit breaker might not be the worst thing in terms of getting bodies back. For me, it's all about momentum. A lot of the time, a lot of sports you watch, and it's not just football. That you ever watched like a tennis match at Wimbledon? I don't watch tennis all year round, right? And something happens in the game where you've just went, he's now better than him, and it's called momentum. It's an invisible force that happens in the match. And Celtic right now, for me, I know both sides are actually winning games by the odd goal here and there, but for whatever reason, the feel-good factor, despite them having a new manager, a former player, a big name in football, to be completely honest, I feel the momentum's, there's a better feel-good vibe at Celtic right now. You know, that song, Everywhere We Go, the fans almost can't wait to start singing that now. That real positivity is happening. And just doing this and getting people going crazy. You know, it's the most unanimated celebration ever. I just think right now, from a football point of view, I'm all for the league carrying on right now. And the next thing we'll get to, of course, is Christmas period, notorious in the UK, not just in Scotland. Obviously, we're talking about the SPFL, but it's fucking crammed. Celtic, I seen the other week in December alone, are playing 9 games. I think they were the joint highest in Europe. So, whilst if you're winning, I actually think that's not all that bad a thing. And here comes Adam, and this is sadly where the argument's going to go down to. And you know it, we all accept this is going to become the talking point on your phone ends, on your, you know, on the bus, you know, and, you know, on your show, it's going to become one of your topics on Endless Celts. If we find out, and let's be honest right now, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah,
the rate
2nd
it's
of
going
January.
at right now, 2 weeks. Do you see I'll put you on the spot. Do you see it being a full crowd at Celtic Park for the Glasgow Derby on the 2nd of January?
We'll see before touching that, Russell. Obviously, we'll come to it. And summed
Sure.
that whole thing up perfectly in his last press conference. He said that people are wrong if they see as football as another section of entertainment. It's a people's way of life. It's a people's escape. For mental health, it's critical for people who could be lonely kind of outlets watching Celtic or the team to support on the
Yep.
TV. Do you know what I mean? There's so many different aspects of football that people need to take into consideration before they throw it in with entertainment. It's not for me. It's a way of life. In terms of the game on the 2nd of January, Russell, at the moment it looks like there's going to be a full house unless things change. Obviously, this Omicron variant, I don't really want to get into the specifics of it because I think my opinions on the whole matter will probably left that to be desired, so I'll leave that for another time. But I mean, for me, I think Adam's totally right. The simple answer to that, it wouldn't be fair. It would not be fair in the slightest. But we can't force a government to make a decision to let us all in. Do you know what I mean? So if they say 50% capacity, unfortunately, as fans, we're going to have to go with that. For me, I want the whole stadium full and full voice, just getting at them from the minute one in the game. It's a waiting game. At the moment, I'll say yes, Russell. I'll put my cards on the table and say there'll be a full house.
Yes, mate. Well, that's the news I want to hear. I think it's key that we get that. It's going to become down to even the small-mindedness, and me will come out and go, well, this is a bit shit that they had all their fans. They actually stopped us from going full stop, and then when we do it, there's no fans there or there's half full. It would just. I want to see what Celtic can do with a full Celtic Park against that lot.
Yep.
I think it could be quite. I think Ange might have a bit of fun in this fixture. I really do. I think it's to Rangers' benefit that Gio's in the hot seat now than Gerrard.
I think as well, Russell, one thing that should concern teams in the SPFL, we won a game with like a literal 4th or 5th choice front three. Do you know what I mean? So there's different ways of looking at it here. We went into that game with Montgomery, Juranovic, and a batter for the middle.
Yep.
In no other sense, if we had a full team, that would never be considered. But we still got the result, and they're still playing the exact same way that Postecoglou wants to play. That should be a big concern for anybody in the league. Do you know what I mean? That's if you know what I mean in terms of 4th and 5th choice striking department. So that's a concern. Like,
I think you're absolutely right in that situation, but I can't help but feel Ange has got a plan. Like, he just strikes you as one of those managers who he's not overly concerned if this guy's missing. Look, mate, it's not ideal, but he'll talk about it 3 months later, not at the time. You know, did you notice he did that at the start of the season? He made reference to, well, you know, this is actually what happened at the start. You know, I came in, we had 2 weeks, it was a whirlwind. We had an 18-year-old at centre back. He was like, but, you know, that's happened, but we've progressed since then. We've got another window coming. I think he might do the same maybe in 3 months' time, go, well, look how we dealt with Christmas, mate. But he won't complain just now about it. And if there is to be a circuit breaker or there is to be a half-full stadiums and then they come back towards the end of the season and it is full grounds again, I think he'll refer to it once it's full grounds again. I don't think he'll make it the bitching and moaning narrative throughout it that Lennon did last year. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the difference. I think Angel... Go on.
I'm bitterly disappointed. That's all he kept saying. That's all. That was Neil Lennon's catchphrase towards the end. But see another thing with Postecoglou in terms of obviously like the full stadiums and stuff and like half capacity. I think you're 100% right to touch upon. He'll probably have a plan for all that. He'll have a kind of a thing where he talks to the players, gets them through it, and I think it'll be a calm situation, not the kind of free for all we've seen last season when teams were coming to Celtic Park, literally getting last minute winners, equalisers in games. And us putting their heads down. That won't happen. That definitely won't happen.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Enough of the COVID. We better move on to some positivity though here, Stephen. And like you touched on at the start of the show, it is the sign of success. We're in the final. We're one game away from our first trophy. 1 out of 1 for Ange Postecoglou. I mean, it's a big day. Despite the players that we're missing, I feel confident. And I also think, mate, if we were to win tomorrow, I think that could be another big boost, provided the fixtures can be fulfilled, you know, kind of at least relatively close to the fixture. It'd be a real shame if we were to win and then it just stopped and they went stop for 2 weeks and then it'd actually be time for the winter break anyway. And before you know it's been 6 weeks. You want to win this and this season catches fucking fire, mate, because I think that could happen.
So do I. I mean, I'm pretty confident in the game. I've been suffering from PMS from Wednesday, Russell, pre-match stress, and you think of kind of every angle that the game could go wrong. Where can Celtic take advantage of it? You feel like a manager yourself, going, where can I play this player? Where can I play that player? But it's all within part and parcel of being a Celtic fan. And a show regular, Anthony Dunn, who made a comment at the start of the show, he said this showpiece final should be dubbed the Bertie Auld final, the Bertie Auld Cup final. I think that's perfectly fitting for a man who represented both clubs to celebrate his legacy. I don't understand why that hasn't been pushed more by certain media outlets, but we won't get into that. But I can see what you're saying. Momentum is the key builder for this season. Win, win, win. That's it. No draws, no losses, because we can't afford that in the league. We'll take the cup on Sunday. Hopefully, touch wood here. I'm confident we'll win. We'll go to St Mirren and we'll beat them, and it'll carry on and carry on. But it brings it back, Russell. This Omicron, this Omicron variant. No one knows where it's going to go. People make up different things about it every day. Figures are going mental. Nicola Sturgeon came out yesterday and gave a briefing that she could have done over Twitter, apparently. I didn't really see it, but you'll know being over there. Yes, exactly. Perfect point by Robert. These games, these bits of silverware are key moments in the season, and it's up to us as Celtic Football Club to take advantage of it, Russell.
It was that game. You know, not the League Cup final, but winning that league. I remember the League Cup final. Craig Billy scored in it. I'm sure it was at Ibrox. It was at Ibrox. And I think Robert Laidlaw came in and made a brilliant point. This is an addiction when you win trophies, right? I don't know what happened to them, you know, because I fully expected them to win. I thought the League Cup, I think must have been favourites by a long way, considering the tournament's finished, you know, before halfway point of the season. You're thinking, well, Celtic always were going to need a bedding in period because Andrew's appointed so late. They should have been a stick on for that fucking thing. But anyway, who cares?
But apparently they're not. They're not hungry no more, Russell. So one trophy, they're not hungry.
No, that's it. And I think you want to see to me what happens with hunger. It's a great point. Is the polar opposite of what they've described. The polar opposite of what Connor Goldson described. What makes you hungry is see when you win one. I want that feeling every time because I'm scared now, scared to death of the feeling of watching someone else do it. I think that's a big thing. A lot of teams, mate, the best teams, and obviously there's so many documentaries right now, and don't get me wrong, by the way, if I'm completely honest, I feel a lot of ex-players rewrite history, right? You know, die-hard professionals every day in training, that like, shut up, mate. Where you fuck? They all know, like, they all come over well, right? And there's no way they were all sound. So I think there's a lot of bullshit with that. But the one thing in documentaries that I always feel has struck me about winning teams was they felt relief when they won. They felt the worst feeling in the world when they lost. It's not even joy when they win. It's relief. I think the Celtic team might be a mix of joy and relief because I think a lot of them, like Cal McGregor, will be in the relief category.
Yeah.
We've won a trophy again. You know, James Forrest will be in the relief category. Jota might be in the joy bit, you know. But combined, it's a good balance that because we've got guys that have been there, seen it, done it. As well as that, you know, Joe Hart, he'll be in the relief category, even though he's never won a trophy with Celtic. These guys come crucial. Christopher Julian, even though he's not playing, will be in the squad. His emotion will be relief we got the job done. And then you can have these other ones going, this is fucking amazing. When's the next one? And that's the truth. And that's how a machine starts forming.
Yeah, I think as well, like when you say relief categories, then players, as you mentioned, McGregor, Forrest, them types of players, Julian would be suffering from that kind of mentality hangover from that season. And they get over the line with another trophy at Celtic Football Club. I mean, it was a terrible disappointment last season, but let's not forget, we came off the back of winning a quadruple treble. We've dominated trophies around Scottish football for years now. And they get over the line again with a League Cup. As you said, these players will just feel that kind of relief, that joy, that emotion again. And hopefully the momentum builds and gets them towards the league or touch and distance get into this derby game, the Glasgow derby game in January anyway, and then take advantage over from there because, as I said, 3 points, Russell. We need that. that's the momentum builder.
Aye.
This game could be it.
You're absolutely right. And like I've said about the league this month, my narrative is, mate, we just muddle our way through. The
Yep.
odds were stacked against us with the it wasn't we were missing a couple of players, we're missing the guys that had, really put that excitement back into Celtic, and that was Jota and Kyogo. They brought back flair football, feel good football. But here's some feel good news. David Logue, my main man, he's came in. He's hearing Kyogo is fit. However, he balances it with, and I was expecting, sources and all that there, David. I'm only kidding. And we don't do that shit on the Bhoycie bus. However, if not, Ange's experience, we'll need our veterans to bring this home. That's the thing. We're going to need folk that have been over the line, and we need folk hungry. And hunger, to me, is so key in this. I think Ange will make sure that both those boxes are ticked. It'll be up to us what we do on the pitch. A lot of it might come down to what options we've got going forward. Because when we played at Easter Road, we fucking blew them away. Come on.
Yeah, with that. I think what makes me confident, Russell, is the fact that we put out that kind of weakened team against Ross County, especially like the front end of the pitch, and we played really well. We were pressing, we were still playing that same identity play that he wants to play, albeit not clinical, but that's understandable. And even at that, Abada up front, he scored a goal. So there's still hope that if Kyogo's not fit, you've got Abada who could fit in there, a slobber knocker. By the way, you stole my word because I said that in my podcast literally before so you stole that. But
maybe that might be true. I certainly didn't do it knowingly, but maybe I did.
No, it was a previous game that I said I described it as a slobber knocker, and I tuned into one of your shows and you said the same thing. I was like, yo. But I mean,
mental.
But I mean, this the way we play can fit the majority of players. So I mean, in the team, Juranovic up the right hand side, he played well for me. He whipped in some fantastic balls. Unfortunately, the fact was there was no target man or Kyogo to get in them smart positions. That's the only thing that was missing in that aspect. But getting into the game, I'm confident if we start the same way we did it against Ross County at Dingwall with that same 11, maybe Taylor coming in for Scales, Rodgers coming in, obviously, I'll be quietly confident we could probably win that game against Hibs quite comfortably because, I mean, they're in their own turmoil themselves. They've no manager. David Gregg's taking them in. Yes, Sean Maloney, he's kind of touted as the next manager, which, by the way, I think is a fantastic move for him. I think he can pull up trees in the kind of coach and manager department because he's learned under Martinez and coached some fantastic players. But just at this moment, Hibs could be at a kind of worse state than they've ever been in this whole entire season, and it's for up to us to take advantage of that.
I think you're absolutely right when you talk about Hibs, and it was actually one of my plans when we talk about the final, because the bus is always going to be about, it's not just everyone's Celtic, right? But I always am aware of my opposition in life, in this, in football, and Hibs right now, to me, I've already put one goal in the net from their own net, and that was getting rid of a guy who got in third last year, that players were signing new contracts for left, right and centre, Martin Boyle being the main one, who I think would have probably took some persuasion to sign that, because obviously he was getting linked even remotely with us at times, and I think certainly we'd have had championship clubs surfing about him. I don't think there's any two ways where you can treble your wages. He signed a new long-term deal there because they all believed in what Jack Ross was doing. Yes, they had a blip in form, but they were third last year. I think, but until today, I know Hearts won today. Hibs aren't playing, so Hearts are now 9 points. Only 6 points off third. Even now, you're going okay, and that's considering the blip they've had, like the dip in form. So you're going. I much prefer our chances playing a Hibs side with an interim manager than a Hibs side with Jack Ross. I know he's notorious for losing finals, playoff finals, cup finals, etc. I get all that, but he's due one, and I just think he had a buy-in from his players that David Gray, with no managerial experience against Postecoglou, is a battle that I think looks very much in our favour, and by the way, in a roundabout way, might put a wee bit more pressure on Postecoglou, because you don't want to be losing to a guy who only hung up his boots 6 months ago and has never managed a team in his life. So maybe there's a bit of that, but I would firmly expect Celtic tomorrow with Hibs, to me, absolute cock up of a sacking, timing wise, even managerial name wise, and then not to be able to get Maloney in early enough because he was linked really from a couple of days later, 3-4 days later, after the crazy Neil Lennon links. I thought, oh hi, but you seen Sean Maloney's name, and I thought, ooh, even quite, and because. It's funny because we've all been so impressed with him when he was on Sky Sports the other week with Boyd. And I know it's easy to look good sitting beside Chris Boyd. I might get a fucking full-time gig sitting next to Chris Boyd. You know what I mean? They might be like, he's a genius. But Maloney, it wasn't just because it was comparison with Boyd. Maloney just is impressive when he talks about football. He just seems to be clued up. He knows exactly how a modern player ticks. He knows exactly about modern football. He'll have all those catchphrases, your low blocks, high press, all that bollocks. Maloney knows it all. And you wonder right now, he's going to be something that Celtic will have, a very close eye on his progress. What you have to hope now is, if Maloney was ever going to be looked at as someone as a future Celtic manager somewhere down the line, is that Hibs don't react so fucking stupidly and try and get rid of him, in such bizarre circumstances. In comes John Tomlinson, mate.
Oh, I know him very well.
I'll leave this one to you, Stephen.
John Tomlinson comes in. Tomorrow will be tough. Hibs have struggled of late, but this is still a cup final and they'll be up for it. But our biggest threat tomorrow is the referee. He loves the referees. Can you tell, Russell? He loves them.
I think John's got a point. He's got a point.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow, again, if we're talking about refs tomorrow after the game, then that will have to be the final sort of nail in the coffin of Celtic turning to action. I think if we're talking about it, I'd like to think we've got a lot more about us. Yeah, it's up the Ricky Burns. Nah. I hope you're there, Daniel. That'd be brilliant if you are, mate. Send us a video if you are, mate. That'd be class. Someone's asking for a team for tomorrow. I'm just not capable of predicting a team, mate. I think it's hard. I think Taylor's going to come in for Scales. I don't particularly want him to. I think Ralston will get right back, Rod. And I think Ivanovic will play in front of Ralston.
I might predict the team on our show. I drop Turnbull and Brown Rodgers and McGregor and Beaton in the midfield. And then Montgomery in the left, a batter for the middle, and Juranovic on the right. Obviously, dependent on injuries and stuff. But can I go back a wee bit to the point you were saying about Hibs in terms of their kind of structure at the moment? From what I could gather and read into it, Ron Gordon, the Hibs owner, had him getting on with Jack Ross from the very start of the season and was looking any excuse to get rid of him. So I think the last defeat they had was against St Mirren, and he got the boot. They brought in Steve Keane, the former Blackburn manager, as the academy director, which I thought was a great shout. So maybe they're bringing in Sean Maloney and Gary Caldwell's assistant to kind of focus on bringing the youth through and a wee bit of experience. I mean, Sean Maloney, that's not discredit him. And he's worked with Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard. He's sitting in a studio beside Chris Boyd, who worked with Alan Parr on a daily basis at Kilmarnock. So there's a big contrast in what these guys can talk about. But just at this moment, I think you're right. David Gray, he's in a no-win situation for me. If he loses this, who knows what's going to happen to him. If he wins it, it's a big boost. But Postecoglou, with his know-how, his experience, should comfortably see off David Gray. Another point as well, David comes in. Maloney, he was linked with us on the kind of assistant coach basis and also for the director of football at the point. So he does have credibility in both camps. And I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing how he does, to be fair.
No, me too. Actually, it's quite exciting to know that whatever he's done at Belgium, let's be honest, we're all kind of just associating a lot of it with the names he's working with. Thierry Henry beside him, Bobby Martinez, we know is I know he's not one and he gets regarded as a failure, but the football he gets teams playing. I went down to Goodison Park when he was in charge at Everton, and honestly, mate, I was like, this is the future. And I knew it when I was watching it. I went, I've never live at a game. This must have been 2013, 2012, about 19 years ago. I know maybe Barcelona and that played like that, but you take it for granted almost with them by then. But at Everton team, and in the way he had the fullbacks, like we see it, but he had them both on the halfway line. and the centre halves actually split when the goalie had the ball, and it was Gareth Barry who would always be deepest. And then you started seeing Scott Brown doing shit like that, and you went, it's all stemmed. Like, I think Martinez, was a huge inspiration for Brendan Rodgers' career. He was the guy at Swansea before Rodgers. I think he was a big inspiration there. But anyway, the point is, Maloney's worked with all these guys. It'll be great to have him in close quarters to see how he does and feels the heat of the SPFL. But I'm glad he's not in the dugout for Sunday, and I do really think it is an advantage. I do think it's an advantage for Celtic come the big game. Daniel McSee loves the suave grey jacket. It's going to be Blazers every Saturday, mate. You know it.
Yes.
It's my quiz show jackets, because we are going to have to play a quiz, mate. We're going to have to do some double doon. We're going to need to do it, mate. How you feeling, Stephen?
I know for fact there'll be a few members of my podcast watching this hoping I feel, because I give them grief and they feel. So I'm absolutely, to be honest, shite myself, to be honest, Russell. So, yes, man.
Oh, mate, it's not the easiest. As always, I've not sorted out a stop clock. I've still not sorted out a leaderboard. I've got a full-time job. I mean, I've done like 4 shows since the last one as well at night. So I've got my great mate Chris Crickstave from Manchester. He works for City, by the way. He's tour guide.
Ooh.
At City. Aye, mate, and it's brilliant the stories he can tell you about folk. It's like, and he's also the best singer I've probably ever heard in my life. No joke. He sings like soul music. Aye, oh no, well, I will. So he's going to sort me a leaderboard for next week, so we can see whether you're first or Jonathan, my brother's first from last week. Jonathan got 125 points last week. Sounds a lot, but there's a lot of points you can win in a double doon quiz, you know, because it's all about the nonsense, mate. I'm going to get out the rules so I can read them all to the viewers, to yourself, and we'll take it from there. So there's 6 questions in double doon. How many? 6. 6 questions now. The quicker you answer them, the more it will benefit you. If you've finished all 6 questions, even if you've not got them all right, you will get an extra 50 points. Right? Okay. If you're 1 to 2 minutes it's taking you, you get 40 points. That's what Jonathan got last week. And I fully expect most people to be able to do it within 1 to 2 minutes.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Oh, if you're humming hodl, it's fine. You still get an extra 20 points if you're between 2 to 3 minutes. If you're any longer than that, then fucking forget it, mate. Right? You're getting nothing extra. Now, with regards to the questions, they start easier. They get progressively harder. Therefore, you get less points for the first question, more points as the questions go on and on. Does that all make sense? Seems fair, doesn't it? Now, you've got 3 lifelines. One's called back down, which I've had to justify to people, and they're fucking right. Back down is a hopeless lifeline, but I just had to get it in the show. I suppose if you were on, 2 to 3 minutes, or 1 to 2 minutes, and it was going to be 2 to 3, you could back down when you hear the last question. If you don't know it, you could go right back down, and then make sure you stay within the shorter time scale to get the bonus points that way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I suppose there's something in it, but yeah, it's pretty hopeless. The other lifelines, flip it. Flip it. You can hear the question, and that means you can only use it once. And that means I've got another question lined up that I'll ask you. That question could be as easy as the number 1 question. It could be as hard as the 6th question. So you can flip it for any of them if you're not sure, but it is tricky, right? John Tomlinson comes in. Stephen's gonna absolutely fuck this.
I told you. They're waiting to me to fail, Russell. They're waiting to me to fail.
Francis Carter, just while you're getting pelters, I'm getting a love from Francis. Yes, mate. Good to have you with us, Francis, and don't you worry. I love you and Kenny too, mate. Don't you worry about that. But we've got some serious work to do with double doon, because Stephen is a bit edgy. I'm seeing a bit of sweat on his forehead.
Now, I'm busting it.
If you want to double doon, that's your other lifeline. Double doon, you have to call it though after. I'll say before each question. Question 1. Question 2. So before each time, you cannot hear the question and then decide you want to double doon on it. You need to interrupt me and go double doon. it'll be an impulse that's going to lead you to double down, right? As opposed to your knowledge, which I think brings an element of luck to the game. Jonathan, though, the good side is he doubled down last week and got it right. So it can be done.
He did.
And so, don't be too scared. And the format this week it's not too dissimilar, right, to what Jonathan's was last week in terms of the questions. Are you ready to play double down, mate?
Of course I am, Russell. Let's go.
Good, lad. Right, I'm going to get the clock up, all right? So we need to share skill. Honestly, I'm still learning to do all this stuff, man. But I think there's a charm to that, isn't there? There's a charm to it. You've not got a clue what you're doing. That was Jonathan's time, by the way. 1 minute 32 last week. He got 125 points. Right?
Right.
So,
okay.
Stopwatch is there. Can you still see it?
Aye, unfortunately, Russell.
Right. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Question number 1. Which Celtic player has been missing since injuring himself off the post in late 2020?
Christopher Julian.
Correct. Question number 2. Name the 3 Japanese internationals to have ever signed for the Hoops.
Kyogo Furuhashi, Nakamura, and Kogi Mizuno.
Brilliant. Mizuno. Question number 3. What year was Tommy Burns announced as Celtic manager?
1995.
Incorrect.
Ah.
Question number 4. Who did Gordon Strachan's Celtic side come up against after qualifying to the last 16 of the Champions League for the first time?
AC Milan.
Correct. Yes, mate. Question number 5.
Double down.
Oh, he's doubling down. Is that... What shirt number did Stan Varga wear for Celtic?
42. I don't know.
Do you know what? It was a fair guess. We'll come back to it, but no, you're right. You're wrong. Right, question number 6. What Celtic player scored a comical own goal against Rennes in the Europa League group stage in 2011?
Chadu Ree.
Yeah, yes, mate. Well done. Stop the clock. I'll take a wee second off that. 1:27 I'm giving you for the time. That's fine. No, that means you're within 1 to 2 minutes. Mate, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. It's the double down that's cost you.
Yeah.
It is the double down that cost you. Right, we'll go through the questions. Mate, you did all right. You did all right. You never flipped any of the questions, which I was surprised
I know.
at. Do you want the flip it question? And we'll give you a bonus. We'll make it a rule. If you've not used the flip it question, you get a bonus 10 points, right? We'll call it 10.
Go
right?
for it.
It's quite hard, but you'll get a bonus 10 points. The flip it question tonight was, name the player Celtic signed from AS Roma in February 97.
Cadere?
No, Enrico Annoni. That was maybe a bit harsh, considering you were a
I was only 3 years old.
I know,
3 years old.
That's fair. That's fair. Anyway, you did all right there, mate. I see in comes Philip DeMarco already, and he's saying, well played.
Thanks, Philip.
Teresa says this is hilarious. I love it, eh? I don't like to say that aimed at you.
I think she is, because I'm a shambles.
Francis raging that he's not done that bad. See? There's a wee bit of support there, mate. Right, we'll go through the questions, shall we?
He's in my podcast, Francis. Francis in my podcast.
Oh, I know. Right, let's go through the questions. Right, we'll bring out the first one. Which Celtic player has been missing since injuring himself off the post in late 2020? It was worth 5 points. You got it right, Christopher Julian. Easy start. Fair?
Yeah.
You can see the vibe now. It is easier questions, right? Name the 3 Japanese internationals. Although, to be fair, this could have tripped you up, I thought. The Koki Mizuno one. That was well remembered. You got it there, though. 10 points. You're up to 15. What year was Tommy Burns announced as
94? Was it 94?
But here, do you know what? I've got a confession for you. You're not the only person who doesn't know this. Celtic don't know this. Celtic have it on their website, because I checked tonight, and they have him down as 1995. I was just double checking it. I was like, he was 94. double check the rest of the internet. 1994, 100% he was
You're-
appointed
you're-
in 94. And on
You're
the
not giving me
Celtic
the points, and it's on the website. Come on,
So
Russell.
Celtic- I can't, mate. It's 94 because it is 94. I knew it was 94. There was a news article when he got appointed, and it's dated 1994. But Celtic generally have that wrong. That's pretty poor, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is pretty poor. So anyway, that could have been a potential 20 points you missed out on. Anyway, let's go on to the next question. I thought this one could have been tricky as well.
I remember that game. Neil Lennon should have took him down, cat down instead of running with him.
And we played them over the 2 legs, 0-0 both legs, and then Kaká scored that after extra time. But you got it right. So that was another 30 points to your tally, taking you up to 45. This was tricky. I mean, but Jonathan had Bobby Pettit last week. Which would you have got that?
No, I can't.
No.
I can't remember.
They are tricky, that one.
Yeah.
But sometimes sometimes like numbers just stick out to people. They do remember them. So I went for a wee bit of an obscure one. At the end of the day, Varga was there 4 seasons, and he was a mainstay for 3 of them. Yeah. So there was a chance that you couldn't win. His squad number was 23.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Miles off.
I didn't know it either. No, but you went for a random number rather than a first 11 number, which I thought was, I know you were on the right track. And then this was a great shout from you. Shaduri, I watched it back tonight. Honestly, that goal was comical, was it not?
He was smiling. I remember because he was smiling back at Fraser Foster, and you're like, what are you doing, man?
I know. It is bizarre. The lack of communication or whatever's happened then, I have no idea at all. And as we covered, the flip it question, if you had used it, would have been name the player Celtic signed from AS Roma 97. That's Enrico Adnone. Obviously, you would have got the value of points for whatever question you subbed for. If you don't use the flip it question from now on, I'll give you a bonus 10 to answer at the end once the timer's stopped, as long as you don't fucking hum and haw over it for ages. So it gives you a total of 85, mate. You're on the podium, Stephen. You're on the podium. You're in second place, mate. No shame in that.
Minutes. Add the minutes in.
Oh!
You forgetting that, Russell? What's going on here?
I don't know, Mo. Honestly, you can tell I'm winging it. Mate, you're joint top. 125. Joint top, mate. I'm just double checking. You were 5 seconds quicker than Jonathan, so that actually puts you. If it comes to head, you'll be the top of the league, mate.
I'll take it, Russell. I'll take it.
Francis says you're still second. 85 plus 40, because you get 50 points if you're under a minute, 40 points if you're 1 to 2 minutes, 20 points if you're 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm sorry, Francis. He's done it, mate. He's done it. He is top on a technicality. And in comes Michael, and he remembers watching that game in Prague drinking 60p pints. I think Shadow Reid had a couple of 60p pints, judging by that fucking own goal, by the way. Well done, though, Stephen. That was a brilliant effort. And that concludes the show. All I've got to say is tomorrow we will be back. I'll go on, I don't know, what time do you think? Half an hour after the game? Let the rest get their job done. I'm going to come on and, we'll rock it up. We'll spice it up a wee bit. We'll give everyone half an hour to come to terms with what's happened. Then we'll go live again. Why fucking not? I'll come on, give my ponderings, my thoughts, and hopefully my celebratory reaction to, the first trophy of Angie's era, if you like. Stephen, anything you'd like to add before you go, my man?
I just want to thank you for inviting me onto the show. As I said, it's funny how things work out, I guess, because you were the first guest on the End of Celts podcast, a really good podcast. Episode 9, anyone wants to check it out, was a fantastic show. And then to come on here and on your show, on your platform, is fantastic. And thank you for that, man.
No, you're totally welcome. Absolute pleasure having you on. Endless Celts, check them out. Brilliant Celtic podcast. They're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Twitter. Just fucking give Big Stephen Tomlinson a follow. He'll promote it plenty. And David Lowe comes in saying the ratings war on the post-match, baby. The Monday night wars have begun, mate. You know it. Anyway, a big thanks to everyone who's watched. We were averaging over 50 for basically the last 40 minutes, which on a Saturday night. Everyone's got things to do. Absolutely buzzing with the numbers watching. It's an absolute privilege to have been on with Stephen as well. He is a top lad. Everyone who's been watching, contributing in the comments, thank you. We'll be back for some more Double Doon. I'm not quite worked out when because it's Christmas Day next Saturday. However, I have made a commitment. I am going to come on live on Christmas Day. Why not?
Ooh.
My brother will be here as well, and we might just go on and we might just play some, I don't know, just talk some Celtic stories and stuff like that. And I think folk might actually quite like it. It breaks up the day on Christmas Day, so we will be live next Christmas Day. Double Doon will be back 2 weeks from now, more than likely, or we'll do a festive Double Doon and I'll get someone else on. We'll work it out. But we're winging it, as you all know. Thanks again to everyone who's watched. I'll see you all later. Stephen, thank you again, my man.